Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conscious Conversion. I'm always excited for the wonderful people I talk to. It's so true. But today, we've been chatting for the last few minutes before hitting record, and I feel like we're old friends and we could talk for days. So I'm really excited for this interview with Douglas Vermeeren. He has researched the success strategies from business leaders in companies like Nike, Reebok, Fruit of the Loom, FedEx, American Airlines, UGG Boots, Uber, KFC, McDonald's, Disney, United Airlines, Microsoft, and others to share their success secrets with you. ABC Television and Fox Business refer to him as the modern-day Napoleon Hill. Y'all know who that is. He's also the producer and director of 3 out of the top 10 personal development movies ever made. And now the new hit film, How Thoughts Become Things. Douglas has authored 3 books in the Guerrilla Marketing series. He's a regular featured expert on Fox, CNN, ABC, NBC, CTV, and CBC, and others. If you want to create more personal or business success, then Vermeeren is the name you need to be familiar with. His trainings are jam-packed with practical tools and strategies that will take you to the top faster than you ever thought possible. Sign me up, man. Currently, his program, Personal Power Mastery, is rated as number 3 in the world for the most powerful personal development seminars. Holy smokes, that was a fun bio to read. Thank you for joining me.
It's a long bio. I got to start doing less, I suppose, eh?
I don't think you should start doing less. I think people are just going to have to rise up to your epicness.
I don't know about epicness either. We'll have fun. Hopefully we can be of service today. That's the key, right?
Yeah, that's the service to others is the key for sure. That's why we do what we do.
Indeed.
All right. So let's just dive in. And well, first off, you mentioned something before I hit record that wasn't in your bio, and that the research that you've done with all of these amazing, corporations and businesses you did at age 19.
That's right. I started at 19. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned Napoleon Hill, because here's the deal is, like, my family had no idea what personal development was or anything like that. My dad worked at construction and my mom babysat kids in the home. And quite frankly, I thought I was destined to enter the rat race, as so many people do. And I was terrible at school. Of course, I think, when we are trying to study things that people force upon us, it's not interesting when we don't get the point, right? So my marks in school were just disastrous. So anyways, don't feel bad if you didn't work hard in school, right? Life can be grand. So here I was getting discouraged, thinking I needed to fit into the mold. And at that time, I was selling pest control door to door in California. That's the job that I had, right? Nothing like knocking on someone's door and saying, "You've got bugs." Like, no one wants to hear that, right?
Here's some poison.
Here's some poison. Can we do your lawn for you? And so I just wasn't very successful at that. My heart wasn't in it anyways. But about that time, somebody gave me the book Think and Grow Rich. And so I read it. Actually, they gave me 2 books, Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And so as I read them, I just discovered something about me, right? That I could be bigger and more brilliant than I'd ever kind of supposed. And so I started with this idea of, you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And the people I was spending time with at the time were not really lifting me to higher planes. And so I started kind of meeting with a friend of mine from our city who had made quite a bit of money, an old retired gentleman. And, we just started meeting, and I like this idea of interviewing and learning from successful people. And so he encouraged me actually to go out and start meeting more successful people. And so that really got me to, like you said, some of the top companies in the world, to people like Oprah Winfrey and Donald Trump, to people like Richard Branson, to Ellen DeGeneres, to like some of the biggest names in sports and celebrities and athleticism, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And it just made a difference in my life. And so that's kind of what got me kickstarted, right? Just being a curious person, but now not about the school stuff, but about the information that really meant something to me, right?
Well, yeah, I think our school system is pretty messed up to force kids to study things that they aren't interested in. It's amazing because my kid he's 5 and he doesn't go to school, and he's never been to school, and he's thirsty for knowledge. He wants to know everything. He has question after question after question. We talk about all of it. So I think that's cool. Amazing that you found yourself in this like curiosity driven education. that then led you to make your first million at what age?
Yeah, kind of what happened is I started getting mentored by these people, or I rather sought after their mentorship. And by the time I was, in the first 6 months, kind of as I started doing these interviews at 19, I did $1.6 million, which is about $9,000 a day. So that was a good beginning, but I wasn't satisfied. To be honest, I'm kind of joking. A 19-year-old can do a lot of damage with $1 million. So I'm not saying I made all the smartest purchases in the world as a young man, but I did, again, have these mentors who kind of pulled me out of, let's call it the toy phase. And as I kind of settled down my life a little bit, I got, I hope, a little smarter. So, so that's where we are today, I hope.
Excellent. Yeah. So what, like, given everything that you know and where you are right now, and given where the world is right now, holy moly, what kind of impact do you hope to make on this planet and on humanity over the course of the next 5 years?
Well, you know, the interesting thing, and we talk about this a little bit in this movie, How Thoughts Become Things. As I studied the 400 top achievers, there was a lot of things that I discovered that a lot of the so-called coaches or gurus or people are teaching today that's not correct. And it's not even valuable. In fact, many of these people, and again, I really am trying to be sensitive, because I don't want people who feel like it's their mission to be a coach to feel discouraged. If it's your mission to do that, do it, but be the best that you can be, and definitely become qualified to help the people that you can. But many of these coaches are out there, they'll read a book, they'll go out and they'll be the teachers of someone else's material. Like you're teaching a photocopy of someone else's material, or they'll see The Secret, or they'll go see Tony Robbins, and tomorrow they're a law of attraction coach or a life coach. That's a really big disservice. Most of the people that are out there coaching have never really created success on their own. So one of the big fallacies that I've heard, and there's just so many of these things that really are off target. One of them is that happiness is a choice. So we're looking at this idea of legacy, of happiness being a choice. Well, not too long ago, I spoke in a maximum security prison in North Carolina. A lot of people there made what they thought at the time were good choices. And now they're in prison and they've got no freedom. And unfortunately, the way that they've lived their life has actually hurt and injured a lot of people. So we've got to understand that happiness is not just a choice, it also includes a consequence. And so we need to understand that what are the consequences that we would like to create with our life. And I'll tell you, for me, to answer your question, boy, that was a long way to come around to this. The idea of creating better consequences for myself, my environment, my family, my legacy, everything, that's really my mission. And if you think about what provides the most happiness, it's putting yourself in a state, or other people in a state, where they can actually have the ability to expand and make more choices, right? It's this diminishing of choices by making incorrect choices that are often based on immediate gratification or things that don't serve us, that limit us. And so if you think about it, ever since the Big Bang, the universe is expanding, right? And so anytime we do something or have a feeling or a thought or anything that's contracting against that, so in other words, anytime that we show up small, or with jealousy or comparison or criticism or hatred or racism, or you fill in the blank, anything that narrows us, even this idea of wealth and saying we're not worthy, or it's not good to have, because we talked about
guilt.
this earlier, shame, anything, any of those things are diminishing. And so we've got to understand that really our mission as how do we say, enlightened beings, if we can use that word, on this earth, is to expand and help others to do the same. And the universe is an echo chamber. So how you decide to show up will determine what shows up for you. If you show up with that, again, that hatred, jealousy, comparison, criticism, feelings of self-worth that are challenged or whatever, that's exactly what's going to show up for you. But if you show up with a positive belief in yourself, a commitment and an enthusiasm, and that you're energetic, and like you use the word joyful, I love that. And we show up that way, that's what shows up for us. And so for my legacy, it's really to, how should we say, be a spreader of goodness. In fact, it's funny, we just kind of started this nonprofit called Tribe of Kindness. And so we're trying to do kind things wherever we go. But you know what the thing about this is when I started this, I thought, I'm going to be in this position where I'm just going to try to be kind to everybody. And, it'll cost me some money to do this, and it'll cost me some time. But you know what? If you're the one who's the giver of gifts, you actually receive far more than you're ever giving. And I actually can't give fast enough to help other people, because it always returns back to me. So that's kind of the legacy. How do we make the world a better place, right?
I love that. And I love what you said about the universe being an echo chamber. That's a really lovely characteristic or characterization, I think, of manifestation and these things. So that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
How has your work, if at all, shifted in the last several months with everything going on?
It has shifted since the day I started. And what I mean by that is that it's not just about COVID. I think a lot of people look at one emergency or one challenge and think that everything's got to change now. Well, the truth is if you weren't changing before and you weren't in the root of changing since the beginning, then, there's a problem. The other thing to think about expansion here is if you want to expand what you have, you must expand who you are. And that's a constant mission. That's not a one-time event. And that's not something that, COVID comes, so I better reinvent myself. Well, it's true. Maybe the reinvention has been a little bit sped up and a little bit more forced. But if you haven't done elements of that before today, you're in real trouble. In fact, I look back to when I was 19. I'm not going to tell you how old I am today, but I just had a birthday earlier this week on Monday. Hooray! But I'm old now. I'm really getting older. But I look back at when I started this. And, there's so many technological advancements that weren't even around, right? Things that weren't happening or occurring, right? And so if I tried to even do my interviews with people like I did when I was 19, it'd be useless, right? In fact, a lot of people would say, well, that's pretty much kids stuff, child's play, right? And so you've got to learn how to kind of grow into things. In fact, for those of you that are coaches or speakers on here, one of the things that I think is important is that you realize you don't have to have all the answers for everybody. You just need to be ahead of them in the answers that you're discovering, right? So it's interesting, like if we use kind of money for an example. When I was 19, I could teach people how to make $1 million. It's pretty easy to do. But now I've got lots of clients and friends and people that work with me that have done that. So I better learn how to teach them to make an awful lot more. So this is my first year, actually. 2020 was my first year that we did 8 figures in passive income. And for those of you who don't understand what 8 figures is, that's 10 million and up. And passive income means I don't have a job. So when you can attach the two, right? Like when I was 19, I worked very hard, right? To make that first million. I was very engaged. And at the time, again, this is dating me. My first cell phone, this big block, right? Like actually, hang on, I've got a picture of it right here. kind of look like this, right?
Yeah.
No. But, technology has changed. So I'd sit on a phone like that. I remember, this is really hilarious. I remember my phone, I was on it so much it would get warm, it would get hot, right? But, it just shows you how things change. And now the way that the evolution is for me now is I figured out better systems. I figured out better strategies to take care of me. And the good news is, as much as I'm excited about how things are today, I'm actually more excited about how they're going to be tomorrow and far into the future, because I haven't even hit my best ideas yet, right? Like I know that the best is totally yet to come.
Yeah,
right?
I just listened to an interview that you did already where somebody asks you sort of where you were in your potential, right? And whether you were hitting your potential. And I really loved your answer. And I have a similar answer where it's like, well, my potential is infinite. So I've hit 0% of that.
Yeah, 0. I haven't even tapped into it.
I haven't even gotten started yet.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? I hope your audience feels that too, because here's another thing that a lot of people talk about when it comes to growth and personal development, right? You hear a lot of people say, well, if you want to become successful, you need to step out of your comfort zone. Can I say that that's the worst lie that you'll ever hear? The truth is I want people to step into their brilliance zone, because that's where they're going to exceed and they're going to excel. And the things that you're not comfortable with, that's the stuff you need to delegate. So when people say to me, Doug, what do you do for a living? Ask me. Go ahead, Sarah. What do you do for a living?
Doug, what do you do for a living?
As little as possible. And I delegate the rest. Yeah. You see, I delegate to people who that's their expertise, right? Like I don't build websites. I don't do internet marketing like you. That's not my skill set.
Hey, I can delegate that now.
Well, and that's good, and you should, right? In fact, if you want to know the fastest way to become wealthy, it's to totally eliminate yourself from the wealth equation in your life. A cog in the wheel is a clog in the wheel. So you need to learn that it's not you that makes your money, it's the systems that you use that make money. And that means that you either have to learn to delegate or to automate. And so if I'm trying to do things that I'm uncomfortable with, whether it's building a website or, doing my own taxes or I supervise those things, but I don't do them, right? And so we've got to find a way to replace ourselves as quickly as possible and focus on our area of brilliance, the area where we can't be replaced, the things that you just love so much that if you were to let them go, it would break your heart, right? Now, I don't know about you, but bookkeeping, it never has broken my heart to step away from that kind of stuff, right? So
not at all.
Why am I doing that, right? Like, why would I invest the effort and time there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me sort of about your creative endeavors right now. How are you reaching people? How have you reached people up to this point, organically or paid, or yeah, how do you have you created your
We've done a
following?
combination of both. With our first movie that I did in 2008 called The Opus, it features a lot of the same individuals that you see in some of my other films. So this has got Jack Canfield and John DeMartini and Mark Victor Hansen and Bob Dole and all those guys in the first movie. But when we did that, the internet was kind of 2008, it was still finding its way. Facebook barely had been invented, right? And so you couldn't really do ads online the same way that you do. So a lot of what we had to do then was partner with real people, right? And by the way, here's an interesting insight for you guys to think about. One of my mentors, when I first started doing things as a 19-year-old, he said to me this, he goes, "You'll never do $1 million deal at a $10 breakfast." So in other words, I up-leveled the people I was hanging out with, right? Because again, this idea that you become like the 5 people you spend your most time with. Now, I want to point out one word that no one ever thinks about, and that's the word spend. That's present tense, not past tense, not who you spent time with, but who you're spending time with. So don't think about, your past programming or the families that you've been in. This is going to hurt me and damage me. I come from a messed up background. You know what? That's a real great excuse. The truth is you can change your reality right now by making it present tense and choosing to spend time with people who can empower you and can enable you. So one of the things that I learned about this spending time, to do $1 million deal among $1 million thinkers, here's one of the thoughts that I got is I actually don't look for customers. I know sometimes, some of your listeners may go to a networking event and you're there trying to share your card. I'm a coach or I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, and you're trying to get people to buy from you. Well, can I encourage you, don't look for customers anymore. Look for people who have groups of your customers or large numbers of your customers. And the other thing that you should be looking for when you go to networking events is collaborators that you can joint venture with, people that can build systems for you, people that can support your work through automating it or whatever. This is where you need to spend your time. You got to remember, where are the big opportunities versus the low, slow, and no opportunities? Most people think they've got to scurry and fight with each other to get customers and all the little come and see what I'm doing stuff. But no, you want to rise to the higher, and you want to be looking for people who actually already kind of have what you need, the people who can fast track you. So anyways, that's kind of what we did when we did the movie The Opus, the first one. Then I did a second movie called The Gratitude Experiment, which was really interesting because, again, out of all the success books that I read, very few of them mention gratitude, but all of the top achievers actually practice it. Most success books focus on like goal setting and time management and blah, 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 developing skills and take massive action, which, by the way, you don't want to take massive action. That's another big fallacy. You want to take deliberate action, not massive action. And the difference is if you think about it, there's a lot of gurus that are online right now saying, become part of the 5 a.m. club, which means you wake up super, super early. Then you got to hustle and grind and go to bed really, really late. You work. But what they don't tell you is what you should be doing during that time. And the truth of the matter is all top achievers, all millionaires and billionaires that I know, most of them are playing golf today. It's because they don't hustle and grind like that. They aren't taking massive action. They're taking deliberate action. Productivity isn't a matter of doing more. It's of doing the right things better. That's what productivity is. And in fact, many times productivity is doing less and getting the same results. So how can you simplify? How can you make things easier so that you're getting the same results, but they're more effective results? Right?
Well, and another thing that comes to mind with that long day, that 5 a.m. to whatever, is there's guys playing golf, but there's also, I'm looking at the movie poster behind you, How Thoughts Become Things. There's also that personal development work of like, how can I really refine my being and who I am and my consciousness? Because that, for me, has had a huge impact on my revenue. And on my business.
Let me show you something really kind of cool. I've got a Sharpie and a whiteboard. So I'm going to write the title, How
For those that are on audio, we have to make sure that we narrate all of this. How
Good.
thoughts...
So what I'm doing is I'm writing down how thoughts become things, just the title of the film. And I'm actually writing it vertically so I can draw a line between it. On one side are the words how and become, and on the other side are the words thoughts and things. Now, let's start on this side over here. Everybody talks about thoughts and things a lot. They talk about thought and they say, I got to overcome negative thinking. I got to overcome fear. I have these doubts about myself, and I often have discouraging thinking and challenging. So those thoughts, we talk about that a lot. The other thing we talk about is things. In fact, everybody brings up the things that they want, right? I want the new car. I want the new house. I want the new clothing. I want the trip. I want that, right? So we talk about things. Now, the interesting thing is Thoughts are always going to be there, both positive and negative. We'll talk about that in a minute. But things are also there. Everything that you already want already exists in some form or another. Even things that, for example, haven't been invented yet, the seeds for those exist already. So again, everyone's talking about, and I'm just writing the word have down, the things that they want to have, right? That's the side everybody focuses on. And because they go straight there, they actually are coming about it incorrectly. Most personal development talks about what we got to do to get what we have, right? What are the systems, the strategies, the checklists, the things that need to be done? These are the majority of books, right, that are out there. They talk about that. Now, let's go here a little bit. The how does deal a lot with the do. So if we're looking at on the side, again, for those that are listening to the audio here, with how thoughts become things, if we talk about how for a second, how really is the do? How are you going to do this, right? How are we going to control our thoughts? How are we going to receive the things that will come? How are we going to, make our life so that it comes into harmony with all of these things? But what's interesting is the most powerful word in this whole thing is actually the word become. Become is the most powerful word. How thoughts become things. Now let me share what I mean. Become has actually a lot to do, or entirely how to do with us, who we will become. Jim Rohn said it this way once. I thought this was really interesting. He said, if a person wins the lottery, if they want to keep it, they need to learn how to become a millionaire very fast, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the beginning of this route. So if we look at it, if we want to get there, it starts with who we become, which allows us to do the right things and then have the right things. You've heard the saying that says actions speak louder than words. Well, the truth is being speaks even louder than actions. And let me explain really one good reason why. And by the way, I'm happy to promote this book. Go and read The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey.
The Speed of Trust?
Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. Great book, brilliant book. But he talks about this importance of being. You see, sometimes as humans, if we look at the do part, we sometimes do some things wrong, right? We make mistakes, even if we're well-intentioned. We don't always get things finished the way they need to be done. Sometimes we even inadvertently offend people or create problems that are there. But the truth is if we be the right thing, we will often do the right thing. But even when we make mistakes with what we do, people will forgive us because they know at heart, internally, we're a person of integrity, or we're a person of caring or giving, and we're a person who has their be sorted out properly, right? So if we can sort this out, we will eventually get to this have, because the funny thing is, by the way, with this do, most people have it wrong. Can I share something really funny? Most people, actually, let me maybe share it this way as a story, okay? A lot of people focus on the do. What do I need to do to create my first $1 million? What do I need to do to be successful? Blah, blah, blah. You fill in the blank what you mean, whatever success looks like to you, right? What do I got to do? Well, when I was doing my interviews with the successful people, the successful business leaders, I had this guy that I met with. He was a multi-billionaire worth about $300 million. I had the idea for a company, and I met with him to get some advice on how I should build my first company. Remember, I was 19, right? So I said to him at lunch, I'm sitting down with him, and I pull up my little business plan, and I said, so what do you think, what should I do to get more customers? What should I do to make the marketing work? What should I do to get the distribution of this better? What should I do to do my manufacturing to provide a better service? What should I do to do this? And how should I go ahead and hire people? And how should I, and he stopped me and he said, congratulations. I can tell you're going to be starting a very small company. And I said, what? This is going to be huge. I'm so enthusiastic. This is a great idea. It's a brilliant company. He goes, nope, I can tell. You're going to be starting a very small company. I said, well, what are you talking about? And he says, well, it's because you're asking selfish questions. I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, most entrepreneurs who start small businesses always ask questions about how should I, or how can I, or what will I, and all the I questions. He said, if you want to become successful, the question you need to ask when it comes to this area of do is who. In other words, who can help me? Who can answer this? Who can do the marketing? Who can help me raise the money? Who can get the distribution? Who? And the less that your answer includes you, the bigger your company will be. I thought that was very insightful. So now whenever I start a company, like I said, just to that joke we kind of alluded to earlier, what do I do for a living? As little as possible. The truth is the more you do for a living, the less success you'll have. So that's with anything, whether you want to build a company, whether you want to build abundance, whether you want to gain your time back, whether you want to have good relationships, whether you want to have a better connection to yourself. Who is it that's in your life that's supporting you with this? Who's helping you with this? And by the way, just as another note on this, because this is kind of fun when we think about it, I'm going to just erase something here on the board. For those of you who are listening, I am going to draw a circle. Circle. And in it, I'm writing the letters P and P, which stands for your passion and your purpose, right? You see, a lot of people out there as gurus right now are saying, if you find your passion and your purpose, you will be successful. Well, the truth of the matter is that's not true. I know a lot of people who have some very unique passions and purposes. Let me use an example. If your passion and your purpose is to, say, color coordinate your Beanie Baby collection, who cares, right? There's no value to anyone. So what is it that we're really searching for? And by the way, Warren Buffett said this best once. He said, what you love about you is your hobby. What others love about you is your business. So it's really important that we recognize we're not just looking for our passion and purpose, meaning a selfish perspective. We actually want to find the passion and purpose of others. I'm drawing another circle for those of you who are listening, and I've overlapped the first circle. And this space where the overlap of your passion and purpose, where it meets the passion and purpose of others, that overlap is the sweet spot. That's what you want to find. And by the way, it's not just about money, although if you find the passion and purpose that you have overlaps the passion and purpose of others, others will give you money for the journey, right? If you're excited about that, they will work with you because they get it. But even more than the money, this is the important part, I think, it's validation, you see? Because there's a lot of times in my business, even though I've got a little bit of success behind me now, there's days that it sucks. I won't lie to you. There's days that I get challenges or problems that come at me that I'm like, this really sucks. And if I don't have that sense of validation in the center there, that not only my customers, but even the people that I've got working for me, if they don't share the same passion, purpose, and I'm here all by myself, trying to solve it by myself, it's really difficult and it's very discouraging. However, if I have an overlap and I love and I'm doing the same things and supporting my people that are either, again, my customers or my employees or people that are working with me, together we can find a solution. Together we can get through difficult times. And you know what's funny is I've even had sometimes a challenge that I've experienced that a customer has come to me and said, this is what you should do. And it's helped. And so my customer has not only, been my customer in the sense of making me money that way, but they've been a validator. And to me, that's even more important.
Well, that speaks to how aligned you and your offerings are with your people and the people that you serve.
Yeah. And I guess that's the other thing too is, if you don't really know what your customers want and you're out there freestyling it, like I know a lot of people in the personal development space, coaches and speakers, like I do work with quite a few of them. I do a coaching program myself. Don't ask to get involved though. We've got a 3-year waiting list and I charge $250K. So it's hard to get in. But I will give you one little bit of advice is that you see these people who they say, I'm going to go on a retreat to write my book. And then they go off in somewhere, some little hotel room somewhere and they sit there and hammer through writing their book. And then they bring it home and they wonder why no one wants to buy it. Well, the truth is because you've written a book for you. You can always tell when I'm writing a book because I'm always asking tons of questions, even to things I think I already know, but I'm asking questions to all of my customers, all the people who will buy the book. So every product that I ever create is a co-creation. It's never me. Everything that you create needs to be a co-creation with the people that are going to be buying it. And if it's not, you're failing, right? You're just creating a book to sit in your garage. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. So all this talk of delegation and involving others in your business and, freeing up your own time, how do you stay authentic, especially when we're talking about marketing, social media and these things, how do you keep things super authentic to you as you delegate some of these? So I guess
the first thing is I don't keep it authentic to me. I keep it authentic to us. Which means it's a team effort again, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say with this co-creating stuff. I'm into that. I like that.
Yeah. So my marketing, funny enough, and you know what, even this film that we just completed, How Thoughts Become Things, I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed that it's only my name that's on the cover of my films because anybody that's ever built a movie knows that it's done by a committee. So in other words, I didn't do the editing on this film. I didn't write the musical scores on this film. I didn't, I wasn't the guy operating the camera, although I know how to do those things and I oversee these things and I'm ultimately responsible for these things, right? I get in the best people that I can find. I kind of like what Steve Jobs once said. He said, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. In fact, just a funny little story from my very first movie, The Opus. Yes, I went to film school. Okay. I studied screenwriting and film production. Yes, I've worked on movies. In fact, the first movie I ever did, I was in the second grade. So all that time, movies have been my life and my passion. I'm really excited about movies. But when it came time to do our first movie, The Opus, I wasn't really sure about some things. This was my first big movie, right? Like, what do you do, right? And so I actually went and hired the cinematographer who had done the work on Brokeback Mountain, Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, and Good Luck Chuck, and a variety of other shows, as you and I talked about before. And so what happened is when I'm supposed to be the director, and by the way, I had him also hire all his buddies who were, lighting guys and all the techs, and right? So you hire the smart guy and then get him to hire his friends. That's very important. But what I did as the director is I talked through what I envisioned for it, what I saw, and then I shut up and I listened. And so when he on the set would set up a shot and then say, okay, so what do you think of this, Mr. Vermeeren? I'd say, first of all, call me Doug. Then I'd look at it. I'd pretend a little bit like I was really smart, but I was still listening. And I'd say, well, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And so that experience became like film school part 2 for me, right? And I just basically asked this, and every once in a while I would kind of, move a light around to make it look like I was kind of important. And then I put it right back to where I had it, and then I kind of step back. And I said, okay, let's do that, right? Let's go. And so the key is you always utilize the expertise of everyone around you, but learn from everyone, right?
This is hugely, I just have to say selfishly, that this conversation is hugely validating with how I run my agency. I'm always
cool.
Trying to hire people who are way smarter than me. And then they're like, hey, Sarah, should we do this? And I'm like, well, why do you think we should do this thing? I feel like I'm like really on it. So that means I'm headed for millions and billions, right?
Well, it's also interesting because it's not just about making movies. I'll never forget, I was in the home of Bill Farley. And for some of you know Bill Farley, Tony Robbins talks about him a lot. But Bill Farley was the former CEO of Fruit of the Loom Underwear. He used to own Chitano Sportswear, California Citrus. I think at one time he owned Christian Dior. So anyways, I was sitting in his living room in Chicago. Funny enough, he's in the same building that Oprah is. And as I was sitting in his living room, I shared with him this business idea that I had. And I'll never forget what he did. Rather than just simply say, oh, great idea to me, what he did is he goes, wait a minute. Took his phone, hit a few buttons. All of a sudden, like 5 people came in. And he said, explain to them your business idea. So I explained again my business idea. Then he asked each of them, so what do you think about that? Each one of them in turn shared their advice. He said, okay, thanks, guys. They left, and then he came back, and then he thought for me, he's like, here's what I think. So in other words, he made sure that he was the last person to answer. In fact, it's interesting that, we often hear the phrase that says, when we're engaged with people, we need to be a good listener. But that's actually not the best advice. Don't be a good listener. Be the last to talk. That's what you should be. That's what I'm saying. So we're looking for information before we share our opinion. Our opinion is welcome. We're not just here to listen and say nothing. Be the last to talk. And what that means is that we become curious sponges for all the information until we form our opinion. And that idea around opinion too is interesting too, because we talk a little bit about this in this movie, but I'll use different words. I was meeting the other day a friend of mine. He's worth about $800 million. He's a real estate developer in my city. And he said something interesting that I thought, this is a good thing. Like, I'd never heard this before. He says, do you know when you subscribe to a belief, when you believe something, you're believing a lie? And I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, okay, let me explain. There's certain things that are obviously true, like the law of gravity, indisputable. But he said there's certain things that we often believe that are not laws, but they're really opinions. And then he asked me, he goes, how did you make your first million? Did you do it the same way I did? I said, absolutely not. He goes, how many ways are there to make a million? I go, well, at least 1 billion ways to make a million. There's more ways to make a million than there is actually dollars in a million. He goes, yeah, there's tons of ways. But he says but the minute you say this is the only way and you believe that to be true, you subscribe to a lie, and you've also cut off all other power and possibility from yourself. So the biggest thing that we need to learn how to do as people is to be teachable. In fact, let me share it this way. This is really interesting too, because you also hear a lot of the gurus say that if you want to be, successful and have a perfect life, you got to eliminate toxic people. And I do say this in the movie. I do believe that you do need to eliminate abusers, because there's no place in your life for that. But a toxic person, generally, we're very quick to label people as toxic because our ego is hurt or damaged by someone who says something we don't agree with. So therefore, they're toxic, right? Now, let me explain this. There's really only two kinds of toxic people in the world. There's a complainer, and that's somebody who, no matter what, they don't have a solution. They just are griping, right? But the problem is most people don't have a firm enough foundation of who they want to be. You've heard that saying, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. They're not standing for anything. So when a complainer comes along, they subscribe for it. Oh, yeah, I believe that. You're right. But if you believe what you really want, you know who you really are, you can build a boundary for a complainer, and you don't have to like, subscribe, endorse, or follow, right? That complainer, they're on their own. That's fine. But we don't eliminate them, because the truth is top achievers are problem solvers. They don't run from problems. So when you have a complainer, you learn how to manage them. You don't say, okay, get out of my life. You're a bad person because you don't like the weather. Go away. Right?
Yeah, because that's not self-mastery. That's not self-mastery.
It's not at all. Yeah. So the other kind of person that shows up in our life is worth listening to, and that's a critic. Now, a critic is actually generally somebody who does come with either some facts, a solution, or an observation. They're just not a good communicator. So when they share with you this critique, it's kind of like, ooh, that doesn't feel great because you called me on my crap. You called me on something where my ego says that I'm right, and I'm always right, and I'm looking for evidence to support my actions and my beliefs. And so you come along and tell me I should reconsider. So therefore, you're toxic. Get lost, right?
So what you're saying is that if we're around somebody who ultimately we can trust in some way, and we're triggered by them, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, at least we need to listen. Again, I'm not even saying that we endorse everything that a critic says, because sometimes a critic doesn't really have the same goals, motives, values, or insights that you do into why your life's going the way it is. But we do need to listen, right? In fact, two interesting thoughts to think about this is when I was a young man, I was starting another business. I started lots of businesses as a young man. Not all of them are surviving today, by the way. Some of them are long gone. Some of them actually are still here. But I had this business plan that I brought to another friend of mine, a high net worth individual, and I said, what do you think about this business? So he looked at it, he flipped the page, oh, you should probably change this. And I defended it right away. I said, no. There's a reason this is in that company. He kind of rolled his eyes and, okay. Went back, still looking at the business plan. Oh, yeah, you should fix this. And I was like, no, that needs to stay, and this is why. Okay. Now he went back again to the business plan and found another thing. And finally, after me like defending all these mistakes, he said to me, he goes, listen, you can be right or you can be rich. You can't be both. And then he said this, he said, your bank statement is a report card of how well you understand this stuff. He says, here's mine. And he showed me, and there were lots and lots and lots of zeros before the decimal point. And then he asked me to show him his, and there were lots of decimal point or zeros after on the wrong side of the decimal point. And so anyways, I said, okay, I guess you're right. And he says, if you're willing to listen to somebody, if you're willing to be teachable, you can be highly successful, but your ego will be your greatest enemy. Then I thought about this analogy. Think about this. What's the difference between tenacity and stupidity? Somebody that wants to follow their goals, they're super tenacious, and somebody who's just stupid, they want to follow their goals. Well, for your listeners who are listening, imagine, if you will, that you're in a room with 4 walls, no door, and it's connected to another room beside it. So one room connected to another room, right? And most people, the way they are is they're stupid. They'll come and they'll bang their head on the wall to get into the next room. And if it doesn't work, even though it hurt, they'll bang their head again in the exact same spot to get to the next room. And they'll keep banging their head to get to the next room. And, what does the saying go? That if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So they continue to do that. And their ego tells them, no, I got it covered. I got it figured out. I'm doing this correctly. Well, a smart person, someone who's tenacious, someone will come and say, you know what? You might want to pick a new spot to bang your head. That's not working.
You might want to fly around the window.
or whatever, right? And to get in the other room. And they'll do that, and maybe that won't hurt, or that will hurt, but they'll try another location, until they either find a door or window, or they make a hole through in an area where it's easier, or with help. They'll get through with help. And this is the difference. So tenacious versus stupidity. Tenacious is someone that's teachable. Anything that you ever want, anything that you'll ever have in your life that's worthwhile will require that you do it with the team. Remember, not how should I, but who can I have help?
Yeah.
And the other thing, if you think about it, like all successful things ever since the beginning have always been done by a team. No one's ever climbed Mount Everest by themselves. No one's ever gone to the moon by themselves. No one's ever won an Olympic medal. We see in the awards that, yes, there's one guy that stands on a podium. He gets the medal. But that's kind of, again, our society, we can't fit enough people on a podium. So we give it to one person. And it kind of has taught us falsely that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And that's totally not true, right?
Yeah.
If you try and do it by yourself, you're going to fail. It's inevitable.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of my mottos to sort of be open to all possibilities, to all perspectives, have my heart open and my mind open to all possibilities. And it's been very interesting since making that shift, the sort of abundance in my life, because when you're open to all possibilities, I mean, there's nothing that's off the table. There's no idea, there's no goal, there's nothing off the table. There's no, possibility of what's happening in the world, for instance.
Well, the thing I think is also a big challenge for most people is they figure that they need to come up with all the solutions to everything that they face as a challenge or a problem. And the truth of the matter is you hear your net worth is determined by your network. Well, there's two things to maybe point out there. One, this idea of network, it's actually two words. We'll talk a little bit in another interview about some of the other meanings, but the one I want to talk about is it's a safety net. If you ever have a problem or a challenge, your network actually can support you through that. In fact, here's one way to look at it corresponding to this film, How Thoughts Become Things. Whenever we have a thought, thoughts always arrive in pairs. Thoughts are a dual nature. So in other words, you get the thought saying, I can do this. This is exciting. I'm enthusiastic, whatever it is, right? But right behind it is the thought that says, no, you can't. You're not worthy. You're less. You doubt. So thoughts always arrive in twos. We got to understand that always, right?
Perspective. Yeah, that's interesting.
Right? They always do. They never come by themselves. But here's the deal is that your thoughts also arrive into, let's call it a nest of your programming. And if your programming around you right now says, no, we don't do that here. We're not entrepreneurs in our family. We don't do that. We failed a million times. You don't know enough. There's no support here. When those two thoughts, even if you do have the more powerful thought that you can do it, they'll arrive in that paradigm or that programming, and it'll also be deflated, right? And vice versa. So we've got to understand that back to that idea, you become like the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you have bad programming from the past where your parents said, no, we're not entrepreneurs here, we can't do this, then what we need to do is we need to graduate to a higher level of network. So when those two thoughts arrive, that they arrive in a position that gives support to what you believe. Now let's take it back to this idea, your network equals your net worth. Net worth doesn't mean just money. And again, I know we've talked a lot about money. I really want people in the audience to understand I'm actually more of a spiritual being than I am a financial being, but I happen to understand both. So I it's like what Wallace D. Wattles said in the book, The Science of Getting Rich. Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains, a person's not truly successful until they are rich. So abundance must overflow into all areas in your life. If you are claiming that you understand these principles, it'll show up everywhere. So here's the deal though, okay? So if this programming shows up among a group, that's supportive, my 5 that are really going to enlighten that, well, all of a sudden, not only will I have, stronger in that area, but I'll also have, these ideas to see it. So again, back to this idea, your network equals your net worth, not just money. Let's take that word net worth and break it down. We'll cast aside the net for a minute, but that word worth and worthy and worthwhile. The question I have is the network that you're hanging around with, what are their values? What do they find worthwhile? And if you can understand if you're in the right place, see, this is a lot of times why some of us have such a hard time because we're being, I guess, surrounded by people who don't have the same value systems with us. Yet we're comparing our values to the evaluation of what these other people are, the standards that they have. Right? Most of us are getting our recognition on how many likes we're getting on Facebook, who's following us, how many subscribers. You know what's funny is I do a lot of speaking, but I don't do things the way a lot of other speakers do. If you look at me, I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram. I think just under 10,000. Whereas then there's other speakers who that's their value. That's what's important to them. In fact, I was on a radio interview the other day and somebody said to me, you're the best speaker that we've never heard of. Right? You're the best speaker we've never heard of. Well, that's kind of a compliment. So what that tells me is while everyone else is out there having to do all this significant marketing and everything to win friends, they bring people through, rinse and repeat, and then they got to go find another crowd. They're always in marketing mode. To me, that talks about weak content. If you're always having to market and find new people, it tells me that you can't keep the people you've got, right?
So that leads me to a question though.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's your next level and how do you plan to reach and impact even more people?
Well, you know, the thing that's interesting is my business and my expertise primarily grow through word of mouth.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying don't market. I'm saying I don't have to spend money to market. There's a difference. Right. And to tell you the truth, I do actually spend money for things that I want to get out to people who haven't heard of it before. Like this movie, you will see that we are marketing it. They don't know us. They don't know the movie. But for my own coaching, there's certain things I don't have to market. There's certain things I don't have to share, because I found those that get my value proposition, and they also find those that get my values too, because they have the same value. Right. So I think what we've got to understand when it comes to a marketing point of view, right, is are we using our marketing, I guess, as a way to attract those that have the same values to us? Because you want to run a business, not a babysitting service, right? And I think that, again, if there was more time, there's also something kind of funny that we talk about when it's finding what is the transaction that we want people to enter into. Right? As soon as we can understand what the true transaction is that we want people to do, then we can understand what our marketing really should look like. Right? And then we'll also reach out to those that resonate with us, that get it and understand it, rather than that shotgun approach. Right? I think that's actually one of the big blessings that we have right now with the way that social media is and things, is we can really target to people that we want to talk to, that we want to have as customers. And by the way, this is another thing too that I think has really helped my business. I know that in the beginning, if someone came with their checkbook out, I would find a way to do business with you, right? Let's do it. But I have since found that the real way to become wealthy is to say no and be more selective. Become, first of all, a master at what you do. Mastery equals monopoly. So in other words, the more skilled you get at what you do, the more choosy you can become. And being choosy does not necessarily just mean the customers that you can take on. It also means the services you're going to provide. You know, there's certain things that I know that I can teach and that I can share, like me as an individual. You got to admit, after interviewing more than 400 of the world's top achievers, you start learning some really important markers to creating business success and other success. And, you know, I mean, I've got ventures that are in business, real estate investment, intellectual property, and also in my networks where I make tons of money. But I don't want to teach about all those. I don't want to share all that. I picked the one or two that I really want to become well known for, the area of my brilliance. We talked about brilliance before. And I become a master in that area. Because I become master there, I can create a monopoly there for myself. And so if there's certain things, like, for example, if people want to learn passive income, right now Money Magazine rated me as the #1 person in the world. I've got people knocking on my door daily that want to learn that. And so I can select those that, you know, if you really want to learn how to become a millionaire, passive income, and I like you, and we have the same energy and we resonate, we'll work together. If not, I'm in a position where, you know, because I built mastery, I can thank someone for their time and wish them best and send them to a competitor without any feelings of scarcity on my part, right?
I love it. How can people find you so they can see?
I don't want them to find me. You know what? In all seriousness, we've got lots of free materials that are out there. So yeah. I'm not really hunting for customers. I want to give. If we resonate and you want to become a customer or in that relationship, we can discuss that at that point. But there's a lot of free stuff for you to be able to see if you like me. YouTube, just type in my name, Douglas Vermeeren. Obviously, come see our movie, How Thoughts Become Things. You can also find me on Instagram. Like I said, I've got, I think, around 10,000 people there. I don't know. I post from time to time. But YouTube is really a great place because I do a lot of regular videos. A lot of the interviews that I do find their way there. So it's a great opportunity. And by the way, we're actually looking at doing a new program that we're going to do it like a daily kind of like a reality TV show almost. So you've heard of that game Bigger and Better, where say somebody will take a paper clip and they'll trade it for something like a pen, and then they'll trade it for something bigger. And there was a guy, I guess, that had traded it and got into a house from a paper clip. Have you ever heard of that, where people trade and they get bigger and better?
No, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, right? So I had one of my friends actually challenge me. He said, okay, so you think you're so smart with money. Here's $1. How long do you think you could use or to take to turn it into $1 million using only that dollar? No other outside money. So we're going to do a reality show to show you, and I'm pretty confident I can do it in less than 6 months. Yeah, $1 to $1 million in less than 6 months. I'm pretty sure I can do it. So, brilliant. Anyways, watch
Can't wait to
YouTube.
see it.
Come check it out. Yeah, we're going to call it the 1x180 experiment. Why not? 180 days, 6 months.
I'm there. I'm going to go subscribe right away.
That's right. Yeah. So that means you got to learn how to turn $1 into $5,000 a day to make it work at a minimum. So, yeah.
I'm your faithful
Anyway,
student.
it'll be fun. And, you know, we can talk more about that on another interview or visit, but there's a lot of, I don't want to call them sneaky things because they're definitely not illegal and they're definitely not wrong. There's just systems that people aren't aware of, how money arrives, right?
Off the radar, under the radar.
And the thing that people don't understand, like in this circumstance, to be honest with you, I'm not going to recommend that everybody even pursue this path because money arrives in events and streams, right? An event is like if you sell a real estate property or you get inheritance or you win the lottery. I mean, we'll take that money if it comes because it's there, right? But that's not the way real wealth is built. Real wealth is built actually in building streams, not events, right? If you think about it kind of like your heart beating, if your heart beat once every 6 months, doesn't matter how much blood, you'd be dead, right? But if it beats regular and consistent and ongoing and in a predictable way, there's life there. So although, yeah, we'll have fun just showing everybody you can do a million out of $1 really quick, but the real method I'm going to recommend people do is actually approach it by building streams of income rather than events of income, because events very risky, right? Yeah. You never know. Like you never know when, you know, the lottery is going to hit for you, or, you know, if an uncle dies or a real estate property goes, or you do a big business deal, it's very unpredictable. So, you know, I don't encourage people to build their life foundation on that.
This is why you're the number one guy for passive income. I get it.
Oh, we have fun.
Yeah. Awesome. It was such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really good. So thanks y'all for listening. I hope you got as much out of this interview as I did, and have an awesome day. Keep taking care of yourself and your loved ones.